Ian, welcome. So good to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Chris.
We've been talking through this series on what it's like to restore, what restoration of the church looks like, and one of the things you and I have been talking a little bit about is how does that play out in our everyday life? Not how do we come to the church, but what does it look like in the rest of our world? Why don't you just, for those who don't know, why don't you explain a little bit who you are, what you do?
All right, thanks for that. First of all, I feel like I should switch up and start interviewing you instead.
Yeah.
So I'm a journalist. I work with the BBC. I've been practicing for about 8 years, of which 2.5 of those have been at the BBC, hosting a show called Fact Finder, which is a media literacy and fact-checking show. But then in March this year, because of COVID and everything, so most of our operations were kind of put on hold, and we came up with a hybrid show called The Breakdown, which brought a few people from all the teams within BBC Africa, and our focus was to cover COVID-19, so making sense of the crisis and understanding the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the side, I'm also founder of Heal the Web, which I believe we shall talk about a little bit more.
Yeah, no, really exciting. And I think one of the things we've explored has just been this conviction that the people who are gifted within the church often feel like this should somehow serve the church, but actually almost we need to flip that on its head. Like, how does the church serve people to be part of their world? And it's so exciting, I think, to see people like you in the media and representing Jesus. And what's that been like, actually, being like a Christian in that space for you? How's that felt?
It's been good. My journey with Christianity is still something that I'm still figuring it out. I'm sure, like most people are. But then it's been quite interesting, and I feel like this year is when I've seen kind of God's manifestation in my life, and I've really understood what He has been wanting for me, and I now understand why I was given the power to be able to tell stories, and why my calling was to be a journalist, which is what has helped me find my purpose, and also helped me to come up with Heal the Web.
Yeah, you talked about Heal the Web. Why don't you explain a little bit about where that is, and then a bit about where it came from, really?
Okay. So Heal the Web started this year in March, but that was after an incident that happened where I happened to... we're just having a good time with my friends at a local club here in Karen, and good night, couple of drinks, and so it had gotten to about midnight, and everyone is all high and excited, and the music feels good at this time. Then someone came in, someone we had all fallen out with, came in, and as the night progressed, they kind of got into an argument with one of my friends, which escalated and turned into a fight. And so as I went to try and stop them from fighting. Somehow I was also caught up in that moment, and unfortunately I punched him 3-4 times, I don't know, from the stories I was being told. And yeah, I wouldn't say I'm proud of that, but I drew a couple of lessons that ended up being part of my journey. I'll tell you a bit more about that. And rightfully, he decided to go and record a statement at the police, because that's now a case of assault. But then he also decided to take a few steps further by going to the blogs and trying to use that to intimidate me.
And you saw kind of firsthand the real dark side of the web space, right?
Exactly, because a couple of articles came out. BBC's Ian Wafula, case of assault involving BBC's Ian Wafula. The second one was like BBC's Ian Wafula spends night in jail, and so people are reaching out to me and asking me what's this all about. At this time, I'd already paid my bond. I'd already informed my bosses that this is what I'm dealing with, because this guy decided to kind of blackmail me and asked for about 350,000 Kenya shillings to drop the case.
Wow.
And so I was feeling all this pressure, and someone just told me, you know what, tell your boss about this, protect your job, because that is what you're fearing for the most. And true to that, the moment I told him on Thursday, and then on Friday the articles began going online. Fortunately for me, they didn't gain any traction, but they had been written by a renowned blogger who is known for the most damaging kind of stories. So I had feared so much for my credibility, my job, and I was just at home feeling pointless and helpless, that I have nowhere to tell my story. And it is in this moment that I realize the internet can have so much power. And look, over the years, I've been doing Fact Finder, talking about fake news, about the internet vices like cyberbullying, trolling, and the likes. I didn't know that I would end up being the story in this case. But that moment helped me find my purpose, because the weekend after, I realized that I can, instead of just telling these stories, I can actually tell them with a purpose, and that is how Heal the Web came about. But I feel, Chris, it would be unfair to go without mentioning how and why Renewal is special to me, because on that very weekend, I was at the lowest point of my life, and over the years, the last 2 years, my mom had been trying to get me to go back to church. She'd been asking me to reduce the drinking. I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic, but it had taken over certain aspects of my life. And I'd find myself occasionally making irresponsible decisions, or just not taking good care of myself as I should. I'd also lost my self-esteem. I'd lost a great part of me that, if this conversation was happening a year ago, I wouldn't even have showed up in the first place. And that has since changed, as you can see. So that Sunday when those articles came out, I was at my lowest. And I remember a colleague of mine had told me about this church in Hillcrest, that, you should check it out. Things are done differently, and I'm sure, because I'd mentioned to her that my problem with church is the lack of belonging, lack of that sense of feeling like you're welcomed, or just because you're dealing with all these issues, or rather, the perception of church is that you have to come here when you're pure, and so that keeps you away. So I came to church, I sat at the back, went through service, and everything that day was just making sense. But what struck me the most is that when my friend asked to introduce me to the leadership team, I was introduced to Adrian, and Adrian turned out to be a very good friend of my mom.
Wow.
And they had worked together for a couple of years, and kind of my mom got her job at the time through interacting with Adrian randomly as well. So
Amazing.
there was so much happening at the point, and I went to the car and I called my mom, and the moment I told her this, she just cried. Cried so much. First, because I actually went to church. Second, because it was not by chance that this church that I actually decided to make time for, and the moment in which I was going back to church, was because I've lost my chain of thought. I didn't know how heavy talking about this story makes me feel, but I mean, it's okay. And I just saw God's working.
Yeah.
And the beauty about how far I've come is that I have seen how I've managed to turn my challenges into kind of wins. And because of that incident, I'm not angry at God that happened. I'm not even angry at this guy. In fact, a week after, I was happy. I almost texted him and told him, thank you. Sorry that I punched you, but thank you.
By the way.
Yeah, because I found my purpose. And that was through Heal the Web. And so basically what we do at Heal the Web is to try and show people the power the internet has over us, is to try and show people that if we continue using the internet as we're using it, we're not headed in the right direction.
Right.
So I try to do this by using my gift and my power of storytelling to reach out. I was catching up with Adrian sometime, and I told him that it's like ministry, only slightly different, because I know I can't heal the web by myself. The task is huge.
Yeah.
But the more I keep talking to people, the more I talk to you, the more I talk to those guys who are watching this, the more they understand just how much sharing a story without questioning where it came from, without questioning whether it was done maliciously, the kind of impact it has on the persons who have been written about.
I love that. We talked about the arc of kind of God's story and where it takes our weakest moment, but turns it into something beautiful, and often purpose is something we band around in church almost too liberally in many ways. But for a lot of people, what can they find their purpose, and how do they seek to serve, not just within the church actually, but outside of the church? What would you say to people like that?
I think what I've learned is that sometimes we already have a purpose, You just need to ask yourself, what are you good at? Look, I had been a journalist for 7 years before this incident happened. I didn't know that my purpose would be to continue telling stories. I just needed a sense of direction. I just needed to pinpoint exactly what kind of stories I need to be, telling and how. And I would say we usually, when we think about purpose, most people feel like they need to think out of this world, yet it's just within us.
That's so good.
So just think about what you're good at, what do you love doing, and find it from within yourself, and then ask yourself for the direction. Another thing you could actually do is, sometimes we go through challenges, and that's part of life, but then ask yourself, why did I go through what I went through? Read a bit deeper about what you need to learn from the kind of challenge you're experiencing. I nearly lost my job. Should it have escalated? I was at my lowest, but just staying at home and reflecting, and it somehow brought me to where I am. So I feel like if I didn't have that week of reflection, and I feel like if I didn't have it within me to look at things, to look at challenges differently, I would not have found my purpose. I would have been wallowing from that particular incident.
Yeah. As we kind of wrap this up, where would you love to see Heal the Web go? What would be your dream for that?
I think the day I see that young people are using the internet to progress themselves, not necessarily just young people, but everyone, but more with the focus of young people, because our generation, is going to determine how the future goes. If I see more people seeing the internet less of entertainment is fine, nothing against that. Yeah. If they see it less as a tool for social interaction and see it more of meeting people online, for having genuine conversations or challenging governments or policies around them and using it as a tool for innovation as well and progression, I feel like my work shall have been accomplished. And so that's one of the goals for Heal the Web, to ensure that people use the internet in a peaceful manner, safe way, inspirational, positive, as well as progressional. And I believe that I know I can't do this alone, Chris. And so I need as much help as possible for people who can be able to come and join me and help me tell these stories on how the negative use of the internet looks like and the kind of consequences it has, and also show what proper use of the internet can make and the kind of change it can bring to us.
Well, we're so excited and we're so behind you as a church
about
so all that you're doing. And for us, just exciting to see that the work of God's kingdom happens across God's kingdom and not just in His church. So thanks so much for all you're doing, and we hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, and I must say that what I love about Renewal is that you're showing people that ministry is just not Sunday gospel, but then what you teach me and what you teach us is ministry continues at our workplace, and that is how we should see being with God and ministry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is how do we step out of Sunday into the Monday?
Exactly.
Make it real.
Yeah.
Bless you, man. Thank you so much. It's great to have you.
Bless you too, Chris.